In this video, I wanted to teach you how to cut grey board on both series of machines. So we're going to start with the CM series, and you'll see that we've got the CM blade in front of us here, which is different to the SDX because the SDX has the auto blade. So we have to tell it how deep we want it to cut and what pressures we want on it on a CM machine, which is fine. It's just a little bit more of a different process, that's all. So I've got a fairly new mat here. So actually it's really sticky and I do not need to use the stencil glue that we showed you in the previous video of retacking your mat. And at Highlight Crafts we sell a fabulous quality grey board. Now there are lots of different qualities out there and prices. So ours isn't the least expensive by any stretch of the imagination. However, it is a really good quality board. You don't want to buy a cheap board that has lots of little chips in it, because your blade can get damaged when you're cutting it. If it suddenly hits a chip in the middle of your board, it can damage your blade. So we're going to be really gentle when we're cutting this, and we're going to build up that cut. So my analogy normally is, if you're going out into your garden to dig a trench, you're not going to put your spade right down 3 feet and try and drag all the soil out. You're going to do it gently, and that's exactly what we're going to do with the CM machine. So this board is just fabulous. This is 1000 micron, so it's 1 millimeter thick, and the CM machine will cope with this perfectly. I think a lot of the times people will be willing to use or expecting to use the deep cut blade, and you don't need to. This is just with your standard blade that comes with all your CM machines. So the first thing I'm going to do is just position this onto my mat, and I'm going to use my scraper just to burnish that down. Now just make sure that your board is flat before you put it on, because if there's a curve in it, it's going to want to lift. And make sure that it's completely stuck down nice and firmly on your mat. The first setting I'm going to use is, I'm going to have my blade depth between 5 and 6. Okay, so I'm going to open up the machine and I'm going to pop the blade into the blade housing unit on the CM machine. So now we're ready to go. So I've just popped the blade in here, and if I just go into here now into the settings, I've got my speed on 5 and I've got my cut pressure on 1, and we're not going to change that pressure as we cut through this board. We're going to keep that pressure low because we don't need to force the blade through. We need the blade depth to do the work for us. So I've already brought a square onto here. And when I'm cutting something that's quite weighty, I will always move the shape slightly in from the edge of the mat, so it's not having to get right to the top. It's got a little bit of room all the way around to really get into that board. I'm then going to load the mat, and I'm going to ask it to do the first cut. So I'm just going to press cut and start, and it will now cut me that square. Now there's no way I'm expecting that to cut through in one go. It wouldn't even cut through in one go on the SDX, so it certainly won't on the CM. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the blade out, and we're going to increase the blade depth to about 8. So the blade depth means how much of the blade is exposed outside of this unit, and we're increasing that with each cut. So it's going where it's already been, so it's going back to that square again, but it's going a little bit further down each time. So then all we do is press OK and cut again and start. Okay, so we've done our second cut now. So let's take the blade out again. Let's go to number 10 and do another cut. And it probably takes the same time as it does to cut on the SDX. It just means that you've got to do a bit more work, taking your blade out and increasing the blade depth, but it's not a hardship really. The one thing I wouldn't suggest is doing a 12 by 24 inch mat with grey board on, because by the time it's cut all the shapes and got down to the bottom, chances are that grey board will have moved slightly. So when it goes back to do its next layer, it will be slightly off. So just do small batches of shapes or individual shapes rather than going in and doing a lot at once. And then our final cut, I'm going to take it right up to number 12. So that's as far out as that blade can go. And I know that it will cut through that because that depth there is about 1 millimeter, which is what we're cutting. So we're going to press OK and cut. It will also depend on the life of your blade. So whether it's a brand new blade or whether it's one that you used a little bit, then you'll find what your blade needs. So now I'm just going to check, and then I'm going to unload my mat. So always check before you take everything off your mat or unload it. And now we've got our perfect square of 1mm grey board cut on our CM machines, which is just fabulous, because if you're into your mixed media, if you're into, you know, your home decor and things like that, this is a perfect way of making embellishments. Then you can paint them, gesso them, add your mediums to them. You can put embossing ink on and triple thick embossing enamel, and it's a really nice way of using your ScanNCut, but we're just asking it to do it very, very gently. So that's how you cut grey board on your CM machines.